In November 1970, a hiker found a woman's body in a remote Norwegian valley. Her identity was so thoroughly erased that 50 years later, we still don't know who she was. The police would eventually count 9 aliases, a dozen fake passports, and a coded notebook that 3 global intelligence agencies could not crack. She had burned her own clothes before she died, and the fire was still smoldering when they found her. Part I: The Discovery. Bergen, Norway. November 29, 1970. A father and his 2 daughters are walking through Isdal Ice Valley, a jagged scar of granite and mist northeast of the city. The valley floor is littered with loose stone, the cliffs rising sheer on both sides. It is a place where the sun barely reaches in winter. The father sees a faint wisp of smoke curling from behind a large boulder. He assumes a campfire. He walks toward it. What he finds is not a campfire. It is a body, lying on its back, surrounded by scorched earth. The fire had been set deliberately, the remains of a wool skirt, a sweater, stockings, a scarf. All synthetic fabric, all melted into the rock. Nearby, a small metal water bottle, a pair of sunglasses with missing lenses, and an empty prescription bottle. The police arrive within hours. The body is taken to the Gates Institute in Bergen. The autopsy will confirm barbiturates and carbon monoxide poisoning. Sleeping pills were found in the system. The fire had been set after death. But the most disturbing discovery comes when the pathologist checks for identifying marks. There are none. No dental records. No surgical scars. No fingerprints on file anywhere in Europe. The woman had deliberately filed down her own fingerprints with a coarse abrasive. Part 2: The Ghost. The investigation begins with her trail, and it is a trail of deliberate mirrors. In the weeks before her death, she had moved through Bergen like a woman made of smoke. She checked into hotels using names like Genevieve Lancier, Claudia Tielt, Vera Jarl. She paid in cash. She spoke a precise, accentless English, with traces of German and Flemish. She registered at the Hotel Neptune on March 20, 1970, as a Belgian tourist. She stayed one night, left no forwarding address. She was seen in restaurants, alone. She ate slowly. She read newspapers from multiple countries. She bought a new suitcase at a department store on May 15, then abandoned the old one at a train station. Inside the abandoned suitcase, 2 wigs, 1 blonde, 1 brown, a pair of sunglasses with the lenses removed, a scarf, and a coded notebook. The notebook was the key. Page after page of handwritten numbers, arranged in columns. Not a diary. Not a letter. A cipher. The police would later estimate that she had used at least 4 distinct handwriting styles across her various hotel registrations. She was not a woman hiding. She was a woman who had been trained to disappear. Part 3: The Cold War Context. Norway, 1970. The Cold War is not a metaphor here, it is a physical presence. The fjords are deep enough to hide Soviet submarines. NATO listening stations dot the coast, tracking radio traffic from Murmansk and the Kola Peninsula. Bergen is a hub. The Isdal Valley sits less than 30 kilometers from the Flesland Air Station, a NATO facility. The woman's body was found within a day's walk of classified military installations. The coded notebook is sent to the Norwegian intelligence service. They cannot break it. It is sent to MI6 in London. They cannot break it. It is sent to the CIA. They cannot break it. The cipher is not a standard military or intelligence code. It appears to be a private system, perhaps a one-time pad, perhaps a book code for which the key text has been destroyed. The notebook contains 216 pages. Only 16 pages contain writing. The rest are blank. At the time, the Norwegian police received a briefing from the intelligence service. A woman matching her description had been seen in Stockholm, Copenhagen, and Paris in the preceding year. She had been observed meeting with men who were known to be Soviet or Eastern Bloc intelligence officers. But no one could confirm her identity. She was a ghost in the machine. Part 4: The Investigation. The investigation lasted 3 years. It is the largest unsolved case in Norwegian criminal history. By 1973, the police had identified 9 aliases, tracked her movements across 7 countries, and interviewed over 200 witnesses. They found her fingerprints filed down, but still partially legible, at the Interpol database in Paris. No match. In 1991, the case was reopened. The body was exhumed from its grave in Bergen's Molendal cemetery. DNA samples were extracted. The tests revealed she had eaten fish approximately 6 hours before her death. They confirmed she had never given birth. They found traces of a rare chemical compound in her hair, a substance used in photographic development. She may have been a chemist. She may have worked with microfilm. In 2017, Norwegian police released the composite sketches to a global audience. They sent new DNA samples to laboratories in the United States and Germany. They used advanced forensic genealogy, the same technique that had cracked the Golden State Killer case. The result, nothing. Her genetic profile did not match any living relative in any database. She had been erased at the molecular level. The turning point. The turning point in the case came not from a new lead, but from a realization. In 2019, a Norwegian journalist named Marit Hygraf published a reconstruction of the woman's final days. She had been seen boarding a train from Oslo to Bergen on November 23, 1970. She had checked into the Hotel Horteheimen under the name Fenella Lorch. She had dinner at a restaurant called Stiftsgarden. She had ordered a glass of wine and a steak. She had paid with a 100 kroner note. Then she had walked into the valley. The journalist found a witness who had seen her at the train station in Bergen. The witness said the woman was carrying a small brown suitcase and a handbag. She looked nervous. She kept checking her watch. She was waiting for someone who never arrived. Part V, the theories. The spy theory. She was a courier for the KGB or the Stasi, carrying intelligence that she was meant to deliver to a handler. Something went wrong. She was burned in the intelligence sense and then burned physically to destroy the evidence. The coded notebook was a dead-drop protocol. The wigs and disguises were tradecraft. The filed fingerprints were standard KGB training for illegals. The chemist theory. She was a scientist or technician who had worked with sensitive materials, photographic development, chemical analysis, perhaps even biological agents. She was defecting, or being silenced. The rare compound in her hair supports this. The trafficking theory. She was a victim of human trafficking, forced to move across borders, controlled by a network. Her multiple identities were not spycraft but survival. Her death was a disposal. The fire was not a cover-up but a ritual of erasure. The blackmail theory. She was a woman with a past she could not escape, perhaps a former Nazi collaborator, perhaps a witness to a crime. She was killed to prevent her from talking. The fire was meant to destroy her identity, not her evidence. None of these theories fit perfectly. All of them leave questions. The spy theory does not explain why the intelligence agencies could not break her code. The chemist theory does not explain the deliberate fingerprint removal. The trafficking theory does not explain the multiple passports. The blackmail theory does not explain the military-grade cipher. Part 6, Closing. The Isdal woman was buried in a concrete grave to prevent her body from being disturbed. The grave marker reads only Unknown Woman. In 2021, the Norwegian police officially closed the investigation. They stated that they had exhausted all available leads. They had spent over 50 years and millions of kroner. They had identified 9 aliases, but never a name. Her body lies in a cemetery in Bergen, less than 10 miles from the valley where she was found. The grave is maintained by the state. No one has ever come to visit. The Isdal woman is not just a cold case. She is a mirror. She represents the people who vanish without a trace, the ones who step into a valley and never step out. The ones whose identities are so thoroughly erased that even the most advanced forensics cannot reconstruct them. She is the limit of investigation, the point where evidence runs out and silence begins. In November 1970, a hiker found a woman's body in a remote Norwegian valley. Her identity was so thoroughly erased that 50 years later, we still don't know who she was. And somewhere, in a file cabinet in an unmarked building, or in a notebook buried in a dead drop, or in the memory of an old man who will never speak, the answer still exists. The silence is not empty. It is waiting.